Hello everyone, my name is Belle, and one thing about me is that artificial intelligence used to terrify me. Even that WALL-E movie unsettled me a little bit. However, I don't care about AI anymore because I'll definitely be dead before it takes over the world. So I thought I may as well use it while I can, hence why I'm making this video. It is currently Tuesday the 16th of January. We have like 15 days left of January and I have 7 books left on my January TBR. These are the books that I have both started and really want to finish before the month ends, and I think I can do it. However, I am terribly indecisive and I don't know what books that I want to read. So I'm going to ask Snapchat AI to do it for me. Snapchat AI comes as a guy, but I customized it to look like a girl because I don't want to be talking to a random little man. This is my actual one and I didn't want to use my actual account to talk to it, so I made a brand new account just for you guys. I think the first option I'm going to ask it is going to be if it wants me to read 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo or The Assassin's Blade. Now I have only this much left to read of 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I kind of have a little less than halfway of The Assassin's Blade. Basically, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is where this news reporter is interviewing this lady called Evelyn Hugo, and Evelyn is giving her the tell-all about her entire life, how she got to where she was, all her loves, everything. And The Assassin's Blade, this is the prequel to the Throne of Glass series. It's like 5 novellas. I'm currently in the middle of the 4th novella, and the end of this goes directly into Throne of Glass. I don't honestly really mind which one we get here. Oh, this is so freaky. I know I'm screen recording it. Pick a book. 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo or Assassin's Blade. A fantasy. I'm gonna put that there so it doesn't think that. Oh, I've heard great things about both 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and The Assassin's Blade. If you're in the mood for a captivating story with a touch of fantasy, I recommend The Assassin's Blade. Well, they said basically Assassin's Blade. It's a thrilling fantasy series that follows the adventures of an assassin. Happy reading. Well, it just left. It left the chat. I feel kind of offended, the fact that it just left. So it looks like the first book that I will be reading in this reading vlog, spoiler free of course, is going to be Assassin's Blade. Selena Sadothian is a feared assassin, and within these 5 novellas, we get her backstory and why she is inevitably imprisoned, which is where Throne of Glass begins at the start. I started reading ACOTAR last year and I didn't really like it, but this series, I am loving it so far. I have not read the Throne of Glass series, and I know there is definitely some discourse surrounding when you're supposed to read The Assassin's Blade, but I'm reading it first, and I'm glad that I'm reading it first because you get kind of connected to Selena. Many years ago now, I started to read Throne of Glass, which is the first book in the Throne of Glass series. That book immediately opens with Selena being imprisoned for a year already, and I didn't know who she was, so I just didn't care. But because I have read Assassin's Blade first, I know her character, I know what she has been through, you know? So I feel like the emotional turmoil will be definitely greater because you go into it knowing the character already. From what I can remember of The Assassin and the Pirate Lord, this does a pretty good job of introducing all the characters and setting up the story. I really like The Assassin and the Healer. I think it did a good job of showing that, yes, she's an assassin, but she also has a very big heart. The Assassin and the Desert was filled with adventure and betrayal, and I actually really like this one. The Assassin and the Underworld was definitely a very stressful novella to get through, I will say that. And this one, yeah, well, we're not going to talk about this one because, yeah, I don't want to. Also, the front cover has like a reindeer looking thing. We find out why it has a reindeer on the front of it in this book. And yeah, that's the end of the book. Tell me why I thought this book was going to have a happy ending. This is literally an 8-book series, and I thought that the prequel was going to have a happy ending. I was reading this book like, oh yeah, I think that everything is going to work out. There was going to be no way that everything was going to work out fine. But here I was just reading it, just casually expecting everything to work out. I already started reading Throne of Glass. I know that things were going to end badly, but I didn't know how badly things were going to end. The ending is painful. Like, it's so painful, and I wonder if they're going to address it in the next book. I mean, they have to address what happens. Like, surely they do. I thoroughly enjoyed my time reading this book. I mean, I'm not the biggest fantasy connoisseur, and I know that this series is YA, but all I've really read is YA fantasy. Like, when I was younger, I used to read quite a lot of fantasy books, but I don't even think I've ever read like an adult fantasy book, like ever. I'm almost finished with Lord of the Rings. I think, because is that a adult one? So this is what I have found. I'm not that well versed in all like fantasy things, so just keep that in mind when I say that I like this book. One thing about me is that I'm not a stranger to fan art. I adore fan art, and often fan art will either make me, one, really excited to read a book, or two, feel intense emotional pain. The fan art for this book, all right, particularly the last novella, it's painful. Have you seen it? It's so incredibly painful. Okay, if you have not read this, close your eyes. I'm going to just put on the screen the fan art that like, it's painful, all right? 3, 2, 1, close your eyes. I'm gonna put it on the screen. This actually physically pains me. Like, what? Who made this? Who made this? Who made this? I'm not okay. Okay, you can open your eyes now. It's off the screen. But like, actually, let's just talk about fan art in general. I found this on TikTok. This is Carden from The Cruel Prince. That's his fan art. Looks like I'm gonna be reading The Cruel Prince. Effective immediately. Before we read the next one, I want to show you a song that I feel best correlates with this book and how I feel about it right now. Like in the future, I could be like, no, that song does not match it whatsoever, but right now, this is the song that I feel matches Assassin's Blade. The next books I'm going to get to pick against is Pride and Prejudice and Crime and Punishment. So Pride and Prejudice, I have this much left to go. I was originally planning on just rereading this book just so I could highlight and underline, but then I decided that I didn't want to do that. Then I found the audiobook of this online, and it is such a lovely audiobook, and I'm listening to it before I go to sleep just because I need something that's going to relax my mind. This is basically just an old school enemies to lovers between Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. Also, I think it's so funny. I just put this together, right? She has an older sister called Jane, and Jane's like the prettiest sister and everything. She's called Jane. And then we have Crime and Punishment, which is about this guy, and he essentially murders this old lady. First, he's like, you know what? She deserved it. Society should be thanking me for killing this old woman. That's what's going on in his mind. And then, you know, as the story's progressing, he's starting to be like, hang on a second, I killed that lady. This guy, Raskolnikov, he gets obsessed with being a student. He's not even a student anymore, but anytime someone asks him, he's like, oh yeah, I'm a student. No, you're not. You're a former student. The guy who peaked in university or college. What do they call it in here? So yeah, these are the two books that I'm going to get Snapchat AI to pick for me. What book should I read? Pride and Prejudice. Not Peer. Pride and Prejudice by Jane. Oh, that's too much. Or Crime and Punishment. Or Crime and Punishment. Tough choice. If you're in the mood for a classic romance with a touch of wit, I recommend Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. It's a beloved novel that explores themes of love, societal expectations, and personal growth. On the other hand, if you're looking for a deep and thought-provoking psychological thriller, both fantastic reads. Ultimately, just pick one. Just pick one. All right. If I have to pick just one, I'd recommend Pride and Prejudice. It's like, was I being too mean there? By just no, because she doesn't. Well, it doesn't know that I'm yelling at it. So Pride and Prejudice is a delightful classic that explores the complexity of love and societal expectations. Okay, looks like Pride and Prejudice is the one. I alternated from listening to this on an audiobook before I went to bed and also just reading it myself, and I found that worked best for me. I just woke up from a 5-hour nap and I'm feeling strangely rejuvenated but also very sick at the same time. Let's talk about Pride and Prejudice. So the back of this book says that it's just a love story between Elizabeth Bennet and Fitzwilliam Darcy, but this book is so much more than that. There is so much betrayal, lies, deceit, sabotage that actually isn't sabotage, even just normal sabotage. There's just a lot that goes into this book, and a lot about other people as well, especially considering it's written in third person, so it's not the same. Don't know what that was. Also, I hate that I'm about to say what I'm about to say, but I feel like it must be said. Every single time I say this book, well, not every single time, only sometimes, let me reiterate that, only sometimes when I say this book do I think of that abominable scene in After.
Elizabeth Bennet needs to chill.
With Harden and Tessa, when they're in that English college classroom and they're fighting about Pride and Prejudice and self-inserting themselves as Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy. I'm sorry for saying that. I've also been reading a lot of modern day romances, so going to Pride and Prejudice, I sort of had to shift my perspective on romance, because yes, Pride and Prejudice is a romance, but it's very different to what people are producing nowadays. But that's what I love about it. Also, Pride and Prejudice is a reread for me. It was actually the first classic that I ever read in like my entire life. Like this first one, because my mom had it on her bookshelf, so I read it. That was the first classic I ever read. Do you remember that show Bridgerton? I don't think I got very far into it, but for some reason I also associate this time period with Bridgerton. I feel like that could be very wrong, but like that's just how I feel. Season 1 episode, I swear I got further into it than that. Should we watch a bit of it together? There's something about high society that I just absolutely adore in books. I have quite a lot of like romance books, and I know logistically it's not going to happen to me, but there is still a possibility, you know, like there's a small possibility because it's set in like modern day. Like this is not going to happen. Should we watch a bit of it together? Or should this be a sex scene? I know there's so many of them in there. Oh, the chessboard. It's very nice scenery. I like that. The tree. I'm currently in the middle of this book right here. The tree. I'm only literally this far in and it's already been so heart-wrenching. It's just been like, what? And now when I see trees, I just think of the willow tree in this book and the meaning and December 3rd. And I'm not talking about this, we're not talking about that, we're not talking about that. But you know what? I will say this book, I get why people like Magnolia Parks. I get it. The first Magnolia Parks book I read, I was like, what is this? I was like, I do not like this at all. Daisy Hates, the first half of it, I was like, this is, no, not for me. I read the last half of Daisy Hates and I really enjoyed it. And now I'm reading this and I'm loving this. Like, now I get it. Someone's running. I'm feeling like maybe I might actually get back into watching this. I mean, I could watch the actual movie because Pride and Prejudice does have a movie. And I also think I'm in the middle of watching that. I don't know what's it with me, but I always start things, get halfway, and then just never finish it. I don't know why. They have Persuasion. No, I don't want to see that. Where's Pride and Prejudice? I know I started watching on here. They don't have Pride and Prejudice? I hate that about Netflix sometimes because I'll be in the middle of the show and then they'll just like take it off. Like that's why I had to stop watching Gossip Girl. I was in the middle of watching Gossip Girl like many years ago and then they took it off Netflix for a few months and they put it back on. And I was just like, well, now I don't want to watch the show anymore because you already took it off. Oh, it's 444. Look at that. 444. Stan has it. Stan has about like 10 million of them. No. What? I thought it was a movie. What's going on here? I'm deeply confused. Maybe we can watch like an edit. I love edits. I don't know how I'm going to watch an edit though because I did delete TikTok. I did delete TikTok. But I do have some saved edits. Do I have one of Pride and Prejudice? No. I don't have as many edits as what I thought I did. Do you reckon this guy could be perceived as Mr. Darcy? Oh, wait. Sorry. Do you know how, I've spent a long time on TikTok? I know that this TikTok right here, the Jacob Elordi edit, right? This is copied, alright? There's the original creator. Her name is Casey. I just remember that because I remember I watched Casey's video like second and I was like, why have I already seen this before? And she was like, no, look, this is the one. My apologies. I almost just showed the wrong person. It was such a big thing. There's a lot of discourse right now. Do you reckon he could be perceived as Mr. Darcy, do you think? Maybe not. Let's just ignore this. Let's just pretend this never happened. As I said before, this book is so much more than just Mr. Darcy and Miss Elizabeth Bennet. There's so much more than that. In this book, there is also this insufferable man called Mr. Collins, and he is supposed to be a love interest for her. We get introduced to him very early on, and I hate him. He's also her cousin. Basically, when Mr. Bennet dies, their entire estate is going to go to Mr. Collins. You need to marry this man, even though he's insufferable, because we're not going to get the estate. And Elizabeth is like, I'm not marrying that man. Back then, I know that people married their cousins. Okay, back then, but we're not back then. Alright, and I have seen so many people defending Mr. Collins. I've literally seen an entire discussion being like, why didn't Elizabeth just marry Mr. Collins? He is literally so annoying. Also, it is mentioned that he's their cousin like a million times. It's mentioned in chapter 15, 16, 17. I don't know, it's mentioned in like so many chapters. But those are just the ones that I have put down here. So I know for a fact that it's mentioned in case anyone's like, meh. He does say some very skin-crawling stuff. Also, there was like a mention of like good breeding in one of the chapters. Why are we talking like they're animals? If you are cousins, incest, no. And the fact that they didn't even get together, people nowadays don't need to be shipping that. It's no. It's the way that if anyone nowadays, like anyone right now, is saying that Elizabeth should be with Mr. Collins when she didn't end up with him, if anyone is saying that, nowadays, their cousin, one of their cousins, warn their cousins effective immediately, because that person, they're gonna be after them. They're gonna be after them. This isn't like a spoiler, by the way, because I mean, obviously, you know, he gets with Darcy, so every other interest is like, okay, well, obviously, you're not gonna get with him. But she says no to him, and he is literally like, oh, she's just playing hard to get. And he's like, yeah, I don't care that you're saying no, because I know you actually mean yes. And don't even get me started on her parents. Do not get me started on her parents. I mean, I will talk about them. Her mother tries to guilt trip her, because she's like, do you not want me to have my estate when my husband dies? I like how also the entire time, throughout the entire book, all she was talking about was her nerves. Is there anything? She would always be like, oh, my poor nerves, my poor nerves. Meanwhile, she is literally getting on every single person's nerves in the entire book. She's being like, oh, poor me, poor me. And meanwhile, she's like just being a menace to every other person. I did try to be understanding, but she just kept saying things and doing things that just made it very hard for me to like her. I also didn't like Mr. Bennet. I just felt like he was like, I mean, what did he even do? I'm imagining everyone in the living room. His character would be the one that's just in the rocking chair in the corner, just like doing nothing, not saying anything, because he was so useless. Anyways, it really does show the change in times, right? Because in this book, they say that Jane was 3 and 20 or 20 and 3, so something like that. I'm assuming that means that she's 23, right? They're 20 and 3. They were like, she's going to be an old maid soon. So it really does show the difference in time, because people who are like 30 not even married. See, I'm 19 soon, and I'm already panicking about that. I feel like my life is wasting away. Completely random and off topic. If I'm ever in an argument with like my future boyfriend and we're no longer on speaking terms, I would like him to write me a letter of explanation, because that's romantic. Like, imagine that, someone writing a letter explaining everything because you're not on speaking terms. I've only had 2 guys in my life like ever write me a letter, and let me tell you, both times it was very romantic. It was very much like, this is so different, rather than just getting like a DM or like someone on Snapchat, you know. There is also a scene at the end where Elizabeth is being belittled by someone. Like, she could have been passive, and she didn't. She like stood up for herself. In the front here it says that this was published in 1813, right? So if books from the 1800s can have a strong female character, so can books from the 21st century, you know what I'm saying? Like, some of the characters I read, I'm like, stand up for yourself. Like, she did. And this is like an old book, and you wouldn't really think that, you know what I'm saying? This book right here solidifies why I like romance. The escapism. I really love this book. I mean, I don't think many people reread a book that they hate. I feel like that's a very strange thing to do. I love the time period of this. Like, I mean, there were like a million characters that I hated. Mr. Wickham, Mrs. Bennet, Mr. Bennet. There was one of her sisters that I didn't mind, but then at the end I hated her. I did not like Miss Bingley at all. I hated Lady Catherine de Bourgh. I kind of hated a lot of characters in this book. Okay, did I say Mr. Collins? Because yeah, I hate him as well. I feel like, well, I did an entire rant about him, so like I think it's obvious. There's a giant hornet trying to get into my room. Like, those characters, I just would like them to be, I would like a polar bear to visit them. But Mrs. Bennet, like, I know, you know, girls support girls and everything, but she did not support girls. She supported her own self. She supported her own selfishness. You know, she was the one who was proud. She was constantly talking about her nerves, which was getting on my nerves. I also liked Mr. Darcy from the start. He has like that very like tragic backstory, you know. He has daddy issues, and also his parents are dead. He is like the caregiver of his like younger sister, and he only cares about him and his sister at the start. But I still think that even if I had read this book without like knowing everything, because I have read it before, I think I can't even remember if I liked him or not. I can't even remember, because I was very young when I read Pride and Prejudice for the first time. There's lots of drama. There's lots of jaw-dropping revelations at some points. Also, fun fact, right? So this book, they go to a lot of places. Like, there's so many different like houses, and like keep going back and forth. And so at some point I was like, wait, what's this place again? You know how like fantasy books have like a map at the start? I was like, it would be great if they put a map in this book at the start. So obviously I looked it up, and there's about 1,000 maps for me to look at. But there was the original painting, right? The original painting, like the map of like all the estates and everything. It's like $1,200. See, I'm on the fence as to whether or not that's like a good deal or not. I mean, obviously I'd never buy it. Watch me like buy it. No, I'm not going to. Anyways, that just about like wraps up my review for Pride and Prejudice. Do I think you should read this? I never like giving out blanket statements, because I just think everyone has such different reading taste, and so I will never flat out just recommend a book like without giving some sort of, I think you'd like this if this or this or this. I think I'd recommend this book if you are looking to read like a period piece, like something that was written in the 1800s, something that is a little bit slower. I didn't say boring, I said slower. I did see a comment one time on like TikTok, someone being like, is there smut in Pride and Prejudice? No, there's not, okay? So if you're looking for a book with that in it, read something else. Before I leave you, I have one last thing. I have the perfect song that describes so many characters in this book.
Well, I'm in need. Oh, she's a gold digger.
Most of the characters in this book, especially Mrs. Bennet. Mrs. Bennet, like this song, that's her.
Now, I ain't saying she a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no bro.
Let's just play a Taylor Swift song now. Because I actually do have a question about Taylor Swift songs, right? Why do they now have a little star next to them? This is my favourite one of her new songs. Why do they have it? Excuse me. I don't have it anymore. I had like a little star there. Because she was like Artist of the Year or something on Spotify. I don't have it anymore. But I think it's only on my phone. Apparently not. I don't know like what happened there. Maybe if I like move it along. No? The next two books I'm going to get it to pick against is Normal People by Sally Rooney and Where He Can't Find You by Darcy Coates. Basically, Normal People is just a book that follows two characters, Marianne and Connell, and I have read this much into it. But I've also watched the TV show, so I know exactly what happens because I watched the TV show first. And honestly, I think I like this book better because I watched the TV show first, so I know what they look like and I sort of know what I'm expecting. Because in this book, it switches between past and present. It also switches between tenses. Normally, books just pick between one or the other. This book doesn't really follow the typical plot. Just two people and them in high school and then college and switching and then after college. And yes, it also does not have quotation marks. But I don't even mind because do I even mind? I don't know. I was expecting to get through this book much faster than I currently have been. But yeah, if you will have noticed, all these books around me, I'm all in the middle of them because I find it very difficult now to only be in the middle of one book. That's just, I don't know, my mind. The other option from Normal People is Where He Can't Find You by Darcy Coates. Basically, in this book, I'm not that far into it, but a whole bunch of people, they go missing, and when they are found again, they're just all stitched back up really weirdly. The guy behind the disappearances is called The Stitcher, and I read another book by this author before, and it was kind of like paranormally and supernaturally in that sense. So everyone in this book currently thinks that the person who is in charge of this is like a person. I don't think it's a person, I think it's something different, which on the back, it basically says that. It literally says that on the back. Why is it not focusing? Why is it not focusing? See, but is it the work of a human killer or something far darker? So 100% it's something far darker. That's also the back if you wanted to just... So I'm just going to ask, what book should I read where he can't find you? A thriller or Normal People? What even genre is Normal People? Coming of age, I guess. No, but seriously, what actually was that noise? Like, did you hear that? And why didn't I hear it in person? Tough choice. They just have such... Almost just said they have AI generated responses. Well, duh, it's AI. Where You Can't Find You sounds like a great option. It's a gripping thriller. On the other hand, if you're interested in a coming age story, Normal People is a fantastic choice. Ultimately, it depends what genre. What genre am I in the mood for? Please choose one. See, I'm being quite nice, aren't I? Sure thing. If I have to choose just one, I'd recommend Where He Can't Find You. It's a thrilling book that will keep you hooked from beginning to end. Happy reading. Okay, so looks like I'll be reading Where He Can't Find You by Darcy Coates.
It's 30 degrees and the aircon is broken inside of my house.
Also, to preface, it was 40 degrees all day, and this is like midnight. It's like midnight and it was still 30 degrees. So inside my house was literally like a furnace. It was colder outside than it was inside. And because the entire day was above 40 degrees, my house was literally cooking like an oven and the aircon wasn't working.
So I'm on the ground because you know how like heat rises to the top. So I'm down here and I have just been reading. I've started to read this book and it's like supernatural. At first I thought this was like a stalker book, but it has some supernatural vibes to it, or paranormal vibes, which I don't really mind. That is the back if you wanted to pause it. I got through quite a lot of this before as well, and I watched The Nun 2 tonight. Now I am currently watching Lilo and Stitch because it's water, so I'm hoping I can trick myself into thinking that it's not as hot. So hot. It's midnight. It should not be this hot.
I've had enough. I'm gonna have a cold shower, like a really freezing one. It is time to talk about this book. There's this creepy old man in this book. Well, he's not old. I thought he was old, and I was getting Monster House vibes from the sort of evil guy in this book until I saw what he looks like, and he does not look old. But at first I was getting like Monster House vibes. Have you seen that movie? Yeah, well, no. I also have a question. What on earth does flax hair mean? Like, I looked up the definition. I looked up what does flax hair mean. I couldn't find anything. Like, what does that even mean? Like what does that mean? This is the second book that I have read by this author, and so far, like, I'm really loving her books. Like, I like them. When I was reading this book, I was like, wow, I'm getting strong Descent vibes from this, and Descent is a movie. There is literally a title page called Descent. So I was like, It's also giving a little bit of The Hills Have Eyes vibes. Also Temple Run, do you remember that game? It's giving a little bit of those vibes as well, like when they're in the minecart. In this book, there is a character that was like underground, and she said that she had to drink sour water. I don't think that was water. I will say that there are some parts of this book that I wanted to know more about, but it was just kind of glossed over. Like, a scene would be added, it would end on really high stakes, and we would never revisit it or mention it ever again. There is also a little bit of repetition in this book. Like, the author will write something and the character will say something to another character, and then a few chapters later, the character will say the same thing again, and it's like the author forgot that she already said it once. When I was younger, I read all of the Diary of Wimpy Kid books, and there was one, it was like when, I think it was called Old School, and he went on this camp, and then at the camp there was this legend of this guy called Silas Scratch, who had like really long claws and everything, and this book also gave me a little bit of those vibes, and a little bit as well. I would say this is a mystery novel with paranormal and supernatural elements, so don't read this book and then be like, oh, that's so far-fetched. That wouldn't happen in real life. Like, yeah, obviously I would love to see this book as a movie or a TV show. It was mostly Scooby-Doo vibes. Like, this book, I just felt like I was reading a Scooby-Doo book. I also have to say I'm literally wearing a Scooby-Doo shirt at the same time as I'm saying this. The mystery element and the way that they would interview people, and the way that there was like the monologue of the person talking, like in Scooby-Doo, you know, when they do the explanations. This is YA, but I think it's mainly just the characters' ages that are YA. There are some themes and some scenes that are a little bit much, I would say, just for like a blanket YA thing. I wouldn't say this book is scary. There are some scary moments. Like, there is a mother in this book, and I was like, what is wrong? Like, she was scaring me a little bit. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, the mother. Also, I think you can make a book more scary by making your environment scary. So things like reading it by yourself in the dark with like your blinds open, and yeah. I wouldn't say this is the most amazing thing I've ever read, but I wouldn't say it's bad. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed my time reading this book. I felt all different emotions. There were some parts where I felt very claustrophobic, some parts where my eyes were going a little bit teary just because it was very wholesome. There were some parts that were just so stressful, and it was like you just couldn't read fast enough, you couldn't turn the pages fast enough because just everything was happening, which I think is a really good thing. I liked the plot. I didn't really feel much connection to the characters, but that's okay. I definitely will be reading this again. I feel like I just have to wait a few years until I forget majority of it, and then I'll read it again, because like I said, like, I actually really enjoyed this book. Like, this book has monster vibes, and I don't really see that very often in books, so it was refreshing to have something different. This is not really a review part, but it is something. Someone in this book attacks a tree with a tire iron, and I will just never forget. I had a teacher who absolutely loved nature, and there were all these trees around, and often people would like scratch things in the tree with a stick. You know, there were these specific trees, they were like kind of green and they were really soft, and it was very easy to scratch like words and stuff in the tree with like a stick. Anytime she saw someone try to scratch the tree, she'll go over to them and she would say like the trees are actually like people and they can actually feel. And I'm gonna say that actually made me feel very guilty, and I'm very nice to trees because, like she said, imagine if someone came up to you and started carving into your skin. You wouldn't like that, would you? So now whenever anyone attacks trees, I just remember her and I'm just like, yeah, that poor tree, like it has feelings, you know? Anyway, that is all I have to say about this. I also just have this book here. And it doesn't have a partner to go up against. I have the smallest amount left. Like, that's all I have left to go up with this book. And yes, it is Christmas. Basically about this Christmas tree farm owner, and the Christmas tree farm is in great peril. Anyway, basically there's this influencer lady and she has this competition, and if you win the competition you get prize money and you also get exposure for your place. So she's like, okay, we're running out of money. She signs up for this competition. The problem is she says that she runs this Christmas tree farm with her boyfriend, which she does not have. So she's basically like, friend, best friend, my boyfriend for the week. And he's like, sure. Okay, there's a small, tiny, minuscule gap from where that bookmark just was. I'm currently up to Luca. That's the best friend's name. Basically, it's only just been her perspective. To make it on theme, I think I'm just going to ask and be like, should I read a Christmas book? Should I read a Christmas book? Imagine it just says no. Absolutely yes. If you're in the mood for some cozy holiday vibes, reading a Christmas book can be a wonderful idea. There are plenty of Christmas themed books out there. I'm just gonna read this anyways. I am wearing a Christmas shirt to deliver this review because, as you can see, this is a Christmas book. And yes, we're going to ignore the fact that it's basically February, but I'm very proud of myself for actually finishing this book, considering I tried to read it at Christmas time and I couldn't do it. It was a little bit painful, and I will tell you why it is, so in case this year you want to read this book around Christmas time. This book is supposed to be friends to lovers, and I put it in quotation marks because it's not really friends to lovers, in my opinion. This book follows Stella and Luca. Stella owns a Christmas tree farm and it's in great peril. She ends up entering this competition that's being run by this influencer. This influencer is going to come to investigate her Christmas tree farm, and then if she wins, she gets like a cash prize. The only problem is she said that she had a boyfriend on the application, which she doesn't. Also, that was such a stupid thing of her to do. Like, she didn't have to do that. And this isn't really a spoiler, but she basically confesses that she put it down from the start on purpose, because she wanted an excuse to be with him. The start of this book annoyed me because she was all like, I can't believe I put down that I had a boyfriend and I don't have a boyfriend. What am I to do? But then later she confesses that she did it on purpose. So it's just like, it's annoying, okay? It's annoying. I don't really like friends to lovers because I've never found a book that's done it, in my opinion, very well. If I have potentially read a good friends to lovers, I can't remember it. I feel like a lot of authors don't realize how being friends with someone and then transitioning into lovers is incredibly complex. It is not just as simple as being like, oh yeah, I like you, let's be together. No, there is so much more that goes into it. This book did not depict that, really. I mean, it kind of did with Stella, but not really. She was just annoying me because she would say one thing and then think something else. Literally in this book, he says that it's like they've been dating for like 10 years. So it's not really like friends, lovers, you know? I would not go to this book if you're looking for friends, lovers. They both liked each other from the start. When you're actually friends with someone, it's platonic. But those romantic feelings, they complicate things so much. Look at the sun on my head right now. This book immediately goes into fake dating. We don't see any build up to that. It's just bam. And both of the characters obviously like each other. So it's not even the sense of, let's fake date and we don't really like each other, we have to pretend to. No, these characters already like each other, and it's so natural because they already like each other. I would have liked to see their friendship more than just be told it, because we get told about their friendship and all the things in the past so much. Also, this book has so much inner monologue, so much like pages and pages and pages of inner monologue. It was driving me up the wall. There'd be a line of dialogue, an entire page of inner monologue, and then the answer. And then I'm like, wait, what are you answering? Like, I've got to go all the way back up here to remember, because it wasn't like a flowing conversation. I don't think they should have been together from the start. I think we should have seen their friendship, then seen the farm troubles, and then see her contemplating, maybe I should enter this competition, and then get together. Like, not just immediately jumping in. I don't know how to say this in a polite way. There were so many words, but just not a lot was happening. The people in the town are pretty cringy. The book is pretty boring, and Stella, in my opinion, was very annoying. This book was also very repetitive. It was kind of the same thing over and over and over again. I have written down, Stella's perspective is insufferable and we never get a break from her incessant ramblings. She has so much inner monologue. I already basically told you guys that. I did not get the Christmas vibes that I was expecting from this book. I was expecting it to just be more Christmassy, but I wasn't really getting that. It was just kind of like at a farm. Like, there was mentions of Christmas, but it just wasn't giving those like Christmas vibes that like I was expecting. Also, this book I think was 100% another author self-insert, because I think like this is the main character, right? And then you'll see on the back, this is what the author looks like. And basically the author, we get a perspective in Luca's mind, and as he's describing Stella, it's almost exactly what this woman looks like on the back here. I don't think that's funny when authors do that. I mean, it was okay. Like, it was not the worst thing I've ever read, you know, but also it was nowhere near the best thing I've ever read. This book is a series, like there's the other ones behind it, and I honestly don't know if I'm going to continue it. I also think because this is her debut novel, the books are just going to get better from there. The ending was just like, okay, like typical. I have a page number here, and I don't know what it is for. It's 204. I don't know why I wrote that down. Why are we slow dancing? This is how my parents argued. So imagine that. Imagine when you're fighting with someone, because normally when people are fighting, it's just like, rah. But no, they fought slow dancing. I just think that's nice. I actually was very interested in his parents' relationship more than this. I kind of want to talk about the friends to lovers thing a little bit, because I feel like I haven't really articulated what I'm trying to say here. I think I actually have kind of experienced a little bit of a friends to lovers, and it ended in disaster. Like, it ended terribly, because once you cross that threshold with someone from being friends to romantic interests, you can never go back. And I tried to go back into that. It didn't work, and it ended disastrously. I don't know if I had to pick any trope for my love life. I don't know what I'd pick, because like I said, I've kind of experienced friends to lovers, and it didn't end very well. The point I'm making is that friends to lovers has the potential to be dramatic, to have conflict. I mean, the third act breakup in that book was horrendously bad. Like, it was a joke, and I don't think that it was as good as what friends to lovers could have been. Anyway, that is all I have for that review. Bye. To also get into like the Christmas spirit, I tried to finish Love Actually, because I started watching it last year around Christmas time. I have 9 minutes left. Look at all the dust on my screen. I don't know, I just don't think this movie is for me. Just a little recap. The 4 books: The Assassins, Blade, Pride and Prejudice, Where He Can't Find You, and Love Like Farms. All books which I have already started and I'm already in the middle of, and I will be getting done. So, I currently don't have any aircon in my house, which is why that fan's going on back there. Is that fan annoying in the background? I checked and I don't think it's that annoying, so we're gonna put the fan on because I'm dying. I'm sweating to death. And again, the aircon does not work in my house, so fan it is.